You were a jester. The bell above your hat trembles, not because you moved, because your hands did. The king is waiting. One sentence hangs in the air, unfinished. 100 eyes remain fixed on you. No one speaks, not even the musicians. You have exactly one heartbeat to decide whether the next words will earn laughter or regret. Most people imagine the medieval jester as little more than a walking joke, a cheerful fool in bright colors whose only purpose was to entertain bored royalty. It is a comforting image, safe, predictable. History suggests something far stranger. The fool may have been the only person in the room allowed to tell the king the truth.
Imagine entering a royal court for the first time. Stone walls swallow every whisper. Silk rustles like distant rain. Nobles lower themselves with perfect precision, each movement carefully measured. Every greeting follows invisible rules. Every conversation carries hidden consequences. Power here is not loud, it is quiet. The higher someone stands, the fewer words they need. And then you walk in wearing bells.
The costume seems absurd. Bright patches of fabric stitched together without symmetry. A cap crowned with long points that sway whenever you move. Tiny bells announcing your arrival before your voice ever can. For centuries, this image has become shorthand for foolishness itself. Yet, clothing has always been language. Your outfit tells everyone that you exist outside ordinary hierarchy. Not above it, not below it, somewhere beside it. That strange position changes everything.
In most medieval courts, nearly everyone fears saying the wrong thing. A careless sentence can destroy alliances. An accidental insult may reshape families for generations. Even trusted advisors learn restraint. Silence often becomes safer than honesty. Yet your profession demands the opposite. You survive by speaking. The very behavior that threatens everyone else becomes the foundation of your existence.
But there is a misunderstanding hidden inside that freedom. You are not free because the king loves criticism. You are free because your criticism wears a mask. A joke reaches places that direct accusation never could. People laugh first. Only afterward do they realize what was actually said. By then, the truth has already entered the room. Modern psychology offers an unexpected explanation. Humor changes how human beings process discomfort. When surprise collides with recognition, defenses weaken. A difficult idea wrapped inside laughter feels less dangerous. Centuries before neuroscience gave names to these mechanisms, court jesters had already learned to navigate them through instinct. They did not understand neurons. They understood people. And sometimes that was enough.
Every performance becomes an invisible calculation. Who is offended today? Who recently lost influence? Who secretly envies another noble? Who cannot afford embarrassment? The joke itself matters less than its direction. Comedy is no longer entertainment. It becomes navigation through an emotional minefield. One laugh opens doors. One mistake closes them forever.
History remembers men like Will Sommers, the court fool of Henry VIII. England remembers him not simply because he amused the king, but because stories portray him as something rarer. A companion. Someone whose unusual position allowed moments of honesty, unavailable to ministers and generals. Whether every story is perfectly true matters less than what people believed. They believed kings sometimes trusted fools more than powerful men. That belief reveals something enduring about power itself.
Power isolates. The higher someone rises, the fewer honest voices remain nearby. Every compliment becomes suspect. Every agreement feels rehearsed. Every smile hides calculation. Eventually, the ruler begins hearing only echoes of his own certainty, unless someone interrupts the pattern. Sometimes, that interruption wears bells.
The irony grows impossible to ignore. To survive, you must appear unintelligent. Yet every successful performance demands extraordinary awareness. You memorize names, study rivalries, predict emotions, sense hesitation before anyone else notices it. The fool must become the sharpest observer in the kingdom, because missing even one subtle signal could become the last mistake you ever make. There were, in truth, different kinds of fools. Some were professional performers, trained in music, poetry, mimicry, and improvisation. Historians often call them artificial fools, though there was nothing artificial about the danger they faced. Others were what medieval courts called natural fools, people whose intellectual disabilities or neurological differences were treated as entertainment. Today, historians view this with deep discomfort. What once passed for amusement now reveals another side of medieval society, one that reminds us how differently past civilizations defined dignity. The bells on the costume could conceal brilliance or exploitation. Sometimes they concealed both. Imagine watching a feast unfold. Silver cups reflect the firelight. Roasted game fills the tables. Music softens every conversation. From a distance, the court appears joyful. Up close, it resembles a battlefield where no swords have yet been drawn. Every marriage is political. Every toast carries meaning. Every glance is remembered. And somewhere between the wine and the whispers, you begin your performance. The first joke lands. The room exhales. The second joke lands. People lean forward. Now comes the dangerous one. The joke that seems aimed at a clumsy servant, until everyone realizes it is really about the king's newest tax. No accusation, no speech, just laughter. Enough to make the truth visible without forcing anyone to admit they had seen it. Historians continue debating how much influence individual jesters truly possessed. Some likely held little authority beyond entertainment. Others appear to have earned genuine personal trust. The evidence varies from court to court, king to king. That uncertainty is revealing in itself. Power rarely leaves clear records of the people who made it uncomfortable. One name survives through both history and legend. Triboulet, the fool who served the French kings Louis XII and Francis I. According to a famous story, he offended Francis so deeply that the king condemned him to death, but generously allowed him to choose the manner of his execution. Triboulet supposedly replied, "Then I choose to die of old age." Whether the exchange happened exactly as told remains uncertain. Yet generations preserved the story because it captures an irresistible idea. Even facing death, the fool reached first for wit. Humor has always carried strange power. Not because it defeats fear, because it walks beside it. Modern neuroscience suggests that understanding a joke requires multiple systems inside the brain working together. Expectation, recognition, surprise, emotion, meaning. A joke is not simply heard, it is solved.
Every laugh marks the moment the mind suddenly rearranges reality.
Perhaps that is why humor survives where arguments fail. An accusation invites defense. A joke invites participation. For one brief instant, speaker and listener build the same unexpected conclusion together. Only afterward do they realize what it meant. By then, changing their mind becomes surprisingly difficult.
You begin noticing something unsettling. The king laughs hardest when everyone else hesitates. Not because the joke is funnier, because confidence itself becomes entertaining. A ruler surrounded by caution begins craving authenticity, even when authenticity stings, especially then. The court watches you constantly, not for comedy, for permission. If the king laughs, everyone laughs. If the king frowns, laughter dies before it begins. Your audience is not really the nobles. It is the mood of one human being. And that mood can reshape an entire kingdom.
Power does something peculiar to perception. The higher people climb, the more reality bends around them. Servants anticipate desires. Ministers soften bad news. Victories become exaggerated. Failures quietly disappear. Little by little, truth becomes increasingly expensive. Someone eventually has to pay the price of speaking it. Sometimes, that payment comes disguised as entertainment.
This paradox appears far beyond medieval Europe. Ancient Rome celebrated satirical festivals. Many indigenous cultures developed sacred clowns who challenge expectations through ritual. Across Asia, royal entertainers blended storytelling with criticism. Different civilizations, different costumes, the same recurring idea. Societies repeatedly invent people who can cross boundaries that others cannot. Shakespeare understood this better than most historians. In King Lear, the fool rarely commands attention through power. Instead, he asks questions no one else dares to ask. His songs sound playful. His riddles seem absurd. Yet hidden inside each performance lies the emotional center of the tragedy. Wisdom arrives wearing foolishness. Not because wisdom enjoys disguise, because disguise allows wisdom to survive. Now imagine removing the costume. No bells, no colorful fabric, no painted smile. Would anyone still allow the same words? Probably not. The performance does not merely entertain. It grants temporary permission. The role protects the message. Without the role, only the danger remains. By now, you understand your real profession. You are not a comedian. You are an observer. Every raised eyebrow becomes information. Every delayed laugh becomes warning. Every silence becomes louder than applause. The greatest performance happens before you ever speak. It happens while watching everyone else. History rarely remembers ordinary days. It remembers extraordinary endings. Some jesters retired peacefully. Others vanished from the record. A few lost the favor of rulers whose tempers shifted as quickly as seasons. Their careers remind us that freedom dependent upon another person's mood is never truly freedom. It is borrowed time. The castle eventually falls silent. Kings die. Dynasties collapse. Stone walls crumble into museums.
Yet something curious survives. Every generation creates new jesters, not always in royal courts, sometimes on theater stages, sometimes behind microphones, sometimes on television, sometimes across the glowing screens we carry in our pockets. The costume changes, the role endures. Modern comedians often discover the same invisible boundary. Audiences invite honesty until honesty becomes uncomfortable. Then laughter hesitates. The oldest negotiation in history begins again. How much truth can humor safely carry? No century has answered the question completely.
Perhaps that is because the jester was never really speaking to kings. He was speaking to everyone watching the king. His performance reminded the court that authority remained human, fallible, emotional, capable of error. For a few fragile moments, the throne became occupied not by an institution, but by a person.
You remove the hat. The bells stop ringing. The audience leaves. Tomorrow, another feast begins. Another ruler sits beneath another crown. Another room waits for someone brave enough to make people laugh at what frightens them most. History changes costumes. Human nature rarely does.
Centuries later, we still use one word as an insult: fool. Yet history quietly suggests another interpretation. Perhaps the fool was not the person who knew the least. Perhaps it was the one willing to risk everything so others could briefly see themselves more clearly. Civilizations build monuments to kings. They preserve the jokes of jesters. Because crowns inherit power, but laughter, when it carries truth, has a curious habit of outliving thrones.